Welcome to PRT 30 for 30. I'm your host, Travis Rackley. In this week's edition of 30 for 30, my field reporters will be covering recreation and leisure activities through the Dark and Middle Ages, the Renaissance period, and Colonial America. These reports will include never-before-seen footage of leisure activities from each of these time periods. We begin with Danielle Welsh reporting for the Dark and Middle Ages. Over to you, Danielle.
Okay, thanks Travis. Leisure in the Dark Ages existed for all classes and came in the form of holiday feasts, parades, and theatrical plays. Peasants worked sun up to sundown for 5.5 days a week. Saturdays ended with a half day, and Sundays were for days of worship. Days were shorter in the winter, leaving more time for leisure. There were about 80 days of complete rest during the year, and 70 days of partial rest in which peasants would stop working during the midday due to upcoming holidays and feasts. This led to 3.5 months of rest throughout the year, allowing for plenty of time for leisure activities. The theater involved community leisure, since actors were pulled from the audience, thus fostering a play-like attitude within the community amongst all classes. Peasants watched theater in parades during the many holidays of the time.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Should we be PRT majors or should we go into business and engineering? Should we follow our teachers' footsteps and show everyone how to be a leisure activist? These are the questions.
The nobility didn't work during these times. Serfs and peasants worked their fields for them. Nobility spent their time watching theatrical miracles such as the birth of Jesus and eating feasts. Jousting, hunting, and sword fighting were the games of the noblemen. During times of celebration, such as the coronation of the king, great tapestries were hung along the castle walls, and the town was covered in flowers. Entertainers would perform in the streets as the king would pass by. In the Dark Ages, numerous holidays were the center for leisure activities. Leisure takes place around holidays in today's age, much like it did in the Dark Ages. Christmas and Thanksgiving are often accompanied by great feasts, parades, and theatrical productions. That's it. Back to you, Travis.
Wow, that was dark. Welcome back to PRT 30 for 30. Again, I'm your host, Travis Rackley. Thank you, Danielle, our anchor out in the fields. We may not see her back in this century. It looks like she's having a great time. We'll now move on to the Renaissance period where our anchor is in the field. Take it away.
Thanks, Travis. In the Renaissance, peasants did not have much of an opportunity for personal entertainment. Instead, their days were filled with long hours in the field or at home working. Because of the nature of the work, the Renaissance peasant did not have time or energy for other diversions. In fact, after some time, they began to resent the fact that their lives revolved around work. History has recorded many peasant revolts as a result. They did not have time to spend on frivolous activities. They were too consumed with having enough to eat and with providing basic needs for their families. Some examples of these games that we still use now are hide and seek, backgammon, billiards, chess, dice, and leapfrog. For the middle class, because of their wealth, they had much more time to devote to fun and games. Noblemen were always striving to become the storied Renaissance man. The Renaissance man was one who was socially adept, sensitive to aesthetic values, skilled in weaponry, strong of body, and learned in letters. He should be able to play games, dance, ride, recite and understand poetry, speak clearly, and give good advice. Women began hunting and used a stone bow as a weapon for leisure. They also started to begin needlework and enjoyed embroidery. Games with cards also became popular among women. The one word that best describes the recreation of the nobility is spectacle. Everything was a big event to them. For example, at dinner parties, as each new course was brought into the room, trumpets would sound. During some plays, just for special effects, sometimes the scenery would be set on fire after the performance. Many of the recreational activities of the Renaissance period began to be defined by what these noblemen participated in. Nobility filled their days with games such as tennis, lawn bowling, archery, billiards, wrestling, and cards. They also found time to take lessons in a variety of things, attend theaters, and listen to music. The biggest difference between recreation then and now is the role it has in a person's life. Today, a person works to live. Working is a means of getting more things. In the Renaissance, people lived to work. They were working just to survive, not for pleasure. It is unheard of that anyone today would work long hours just to survive. The main reason for the large change in cultural attitude is that now only 1 to 2% of our workforce is necessary to feed the rest, whereas back then the exact opposite was true. Thanks. Back to you, Travis.
Wow, thanks, Zach. That was great. With all that knowledge, I feel like I've been born again. Now on to Colonial America, I'll be giving a little bit of background information. During the 16th century, colonization began along the eastern United States by the English, French, Spanish, Dutch, and Russian settlers. With this unique mix of settlers came differences in the way that people spent their leisure time. Although religious beliefs often controlled leisure activities during this time, divided into the New England colonies, middle colonies, and southern colonies during the middle of the 16th and 17th century, the East Coast was filled with a unique blend of cultures and leisure activities.
Religion in the New England colonies was mostly Puritan. Children in these colonies spent almost all of their time at church, in school, or with their families. During this time, girls were not allowed to attend school. Instead, they were taught at home by their parents or spent days doing work around the house. Children enjoyed activities such as board games, playing cards, and jump rope. Adults during this time would spend most of their days doing chores around the house or working in the fields to provide for their families. With the little leisure time that they had, pilgrims in the New England colonies would indulge in drinking, gambling, and playing cards.
$100 I'm gonna win this hand.
Matched.
200 pesos.
You got it.
30 pounds.
The middle colonies were a mixing pot of settlers which also brought along various religious beliefs. Although farming was a large part of life, leisure time was more prevalent in the middle colonies and was spent playing games such as ninepin, cricket, or tag. Women did not have many opportunities for leisure activities because they were often taking care of the children or were not allowed in bars or other places where these activities took place. Men in the middle colonies also enjoyed gambling, boxing, shooting, and hunting for sport. Puritan religion did not have as strong of an influence in the southern colonies, which allowed for more leisure activities. Families in the South spent much of their free time maintaining large tobacco farms, and the children would often make up games while working, such as who could carry the most wood. Children also played games such as rolling hoop, hopscotch, and sack racing. Southern families were often quite wealthy, so adults indulged in things such as fighting, sewing, shooting games, and attending nice dinners or gatherings. Leisure in colonial America was used to get away from the business of life, such as working in the fields or doing chores around the house. Most days were filled with cleaning, working, cooking, and farming. Leisure activities would give settlers the chance to relax and spend time with their friends and family. Leisure activities were very similar to ours today. Both adults and children competed in individual and team sports that are still played, such as cards, shooting, fighting, board games, and dancing. Unlike today, women and girls in colonial America were often unable to participate in leisure activities. Instead, they were supposed to cook, clean, work, or watch over the children.
Thank you, Andrew, for your report on Colonial America. I would like to thank all of the reporters for their diligent work in the field today. As we come to a close of this edition for PRT 30 for 30, I want to reflect on how the past has shaped leisure activities today. The Dark Ages taught us how to celebrate the holidays with a festive spirit. The Renaissance gave leisure a rebirth, teaching us that art and culture bring about their own form of leisure. Lastly, the colonial times taught us that leisure isn't all about play and competition. Thank you for watching, and tune in next semester for PRT 30 for 30.